Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into the astonishing story of a woman who broke every rule in the Gilded Age, a time of extravagant wealth and patriarchal power. She was a financial genius, a master of the stock market, and at the time of her death, the richest woman in the world. Yet, she was also known for her extreme frugality, earning her the infamous nickname, the Witch of Wall Street. This is the story of Hetty Green and her untold secrets. Picture this, late 19th century New York. The streets are bustling with horse-drawn carriages and men in top hats, the titans of industry like Rockefeller, Carnegie, and Morgan. But among them moved a figure entirely out of place, a woman often dressed in a worn, black dress she refused to replace, who held more financial power than nearly all of them. This was Henrietta Hetty Green. But how did she get there? Was she truly the miserly witch of legend, or was there more to her story? Hetty's journey began not in poverty, but in a wealthy Quaker whaling family in New Bedford, Massachusetts, in 1834. From a very young age, finance was her world. While other girls were learning needlepoint, little Hetty was reading financial papers to her father and grandfather, whose eyesight was failing. By the age of 6, she was obsessed with the stock market pages. By 13, she was the family bookkeeper. This wasn't just a hobby, it was an apprenticeship in the brutal, high-stakes world of 19th century commerce. Her family's motto was essentially, buy low, sell high, and they instilled in her a deep-seated belief in the value of thrift and the power of compounding interest. This early education would become the bedrock of her entire financial empire. Her first major financial test came upon her father's death in 1865. She inherited about $7.5 million, a fortune in its own right, worth over $100 million today. But Hetty didn't just sit on her inheritance. She immediately put it to work. She moved to New York City, the beating heart of American finance, and began investing directly in the stock market. This was unheard of for a woman at the time. Wall Street was a men's club, and they didn't take kindly to an outsider, let alone a woman, playing their game and winning. Hetty's strategy was remarkably simple, yet profoundly effective. She was a value investor, long before the term was popularized by Benjamin Graham. She didn't chase trends or listen to hot tips. Instead, she conducted meticulous research, studying a company's fundamentals and its balance sheets. She only invested in things she understood, and she always held a large cash reserve. This cash position was her secret weapon. When financial panics hit, as they often did in that volatile era, other investors were forced to sell their assets at rock-bottom prices. But not Hetty. She would sweep in with her cash, buying up stocks, bonds, and real estate for pennies on the dollar. As she famously said, I buy when things are low, and nobody wants them. I keep them until they go up, and people are crazy to get them. One of her most legendary moves came during the panic of 1907. The entire New York stock market was on the verge of collapse. Banks were failing, and fortunes were being wiped out. Even the great J.P. Morgan was scrambling. During this chaos, the city of New York itself was nearly bankrupt and came to Hetty Green for a loan. She calmly wrote them a check for over $1 million, securing the loan with short-term revenue bonds, and in doing so, helped stabilize the entire financial system. She made a handsome profit, of course, but it showed the sheer scale of her power. She wasn't just a player on Wall Street. She was a lender of last resort, a financial institution unto herself. But as her fortune grew, so did her legend, and not in a good way. The press and the public became fascinated with her extreme penny pinching. The stories are almost too bizarre to be believed, and they earned her the Witch of Wall Street moniker. It was said she never turned on the heat or used hot water. She supposedly wore the same black dress until it fell apart, washing only the bottom part that got dirty to save on soap. She would travel thousands of miles just to collect a debt of a few $100s. Perhaps the most infamous tale concerns her son, Ned. When he was a boy, he injured his leg in a sledding accident. According to the legend, Hetty, unwilling to pay a doctor's fee, tried to get him treated at a free charity clinic. When they recognized her as the wealthy Hetty Green, she allegedly argued with them and stormed out. By the time she finally sought proper care, it was too late, and Ned's leg had to be amputated. This story cemented her reputation as a heartless miser whose greed surpassed even her maternal instincts. But here's where the untold secrets come in. Was this popular image the whole truth? In recent years, historians have begun to question the narrative. Hetty operated in a world that was intensely hostile to powerful women. A man who was frugal and shrewd was called a savvy businessman. A woman who did the same was labeled a witch. Much of the negative press may have been fueled by sexism and jealousy from her male competitors who couldn't stand being outsmarted by a woman. Let's re-examine that tragic story about her son's leg. While it's true Ned's leg was amputated, some accounts suggest Hetty did, in fact, take him to multiple doctors and spared no expense trying to save it. The story of the charity clinic might have been an exaggeration or an outright fabrication, spun by a society eager to villainize a woman who defied convention. After all, her children, Ned and Sylvia, remained fiercely loyal to her their entire lives. They never spoke ill of her. In fact, after Hetty's death, Ned became known for his extravagant spending, as if to compensate for a lifetime of thrift. He owned yachts, custom-built cars, and a massive estate. This doesn't sound like the behavior of a son who harbored deep resentment towards his mother. Hetty's worldview was shaped by her Quaker upbringing, which viewed extravagance as a sin. She saw waste everywhere in the Gilded Age, an era known for its obscene, performative wealth. While the Vanderbilts were building opulent mansions they barely lived in, Hetty was living in modest boarding houses and managing her billion-dollar empire from the floor of a bank lobby. To her, this wasn't misery. It was prudence. She despised debt and believed that true security came from living below your means, no matter how vast those means were. She wasn't necessarily hoarding money for its own sake. She was preserving and growing capital, a principle she held almost sacred. Furthermore, she was far from a recluse. She was a constant, active presence on Wall Street. She owned huge amounts of real estate in Chicago, office buildings in New York, and had investments in railroads and mines all across the country. Managing this vast portfolio required constant attention. She chose to live in cheap apartments not just to save money but for security and anonymity. In an era without modern security, being a woman known to carry millions in bonds in her handbag made her a target. By living humbly and moving frequently, she avoided unwanted attention. So, who was the real Hetty Green? She was undoubtedly a complex and contradictory figure. A financial visionary who could predict market crashes with uncanny accuracy, yet who would reportedly argue over the price of a bottle of milk. A woman who lent millions to save New York City from collapse, but who was rumored to have neglected her own son's health to save a few dollars. Hetty Green died in 1916 at the age of 81. Her estate was valued at somewhere between $100 and $200 million, which in today's money would be well over $2.5 to $5 billion, making her arguably the wealthiest woman in history. She left her entire fortune to her two children. She had built an empire through sheer intellect, iron will, and a philosophy of radical frugality in an age of excess. The story of Hetty Green is a powerful lesson. It forces us to ask what defines success and what is the true cost of wealth. Was she a monster or a misunderstood genius who was simply playing a man's game by her own rules? Perhaps the truth is that she was neither a saint nor a witch, but a brilliant, fiercely independent woman who built a dynasty on her own terms, leaving behind a legacy that is just as controversial and fascinating today as it was a century ago. She remains a testament to the fact that sometimes the most unconventional paths lead to the most extraordinary destinations. What do you think? Was Hetty Green a financial hero or a greedy villain? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another story. We'll see you in the next video.